Record, and we're going.
This is Live from the Table, the official podcast of New York's world-famous Comedy Cellar, coming at you on Sirius XM 99 and the Laugh Button Podcast Network. This is Dan Natterman. I'm here with Noam Dorman, as always, the owner of the world-famous Comedy Cellar. Periel Ashenbrand is here, all the way from Newcastle on Tyne, England. We have Andrew Hankinson. He is a writer who has contributed to many publications, including The Observer, The Guardian, The New Yorker, and Wired. And his second book, Don't Applaud, Either Laugh or Don't, at the Comedy Cellar, a portrait of the iconic New York Comedy Club, is out on May 4th. We also have with us Jon Laster, stand-up comedian, actor, writer, producer, and Comedy Cellar regular. Welcome, one and all, to the program. I'm coming from, by the way, Aruba, and my Wi-Fi is not as good as it could be, but I hope everybody can hear me well enough.
Absolutely.
Like, John, I can't see you. Does everybody else see John?
I see John.
I just saw him.
Put it in gallery view again.
What's that?
Put your Zoom on gallery view.
A gallery view, that might help. I don't know. That doesn't seem to be helping.
Maximize your screen. Well, okay.
Wi-Fi sucks here at the Holiday Inn Aruba.
I don't think that's a Wi-Fi issue. But anyway, go ahead.
I give the hotel 4 stars except for the Wi-Fi, and the hot tub is also terrible. The bubbles are anemic at best.
Prostitution is legal in Aruba, right?
I think it's either it's legal or they look the other way. But it's legal enough in New York that, I don't know too many people that have an issue finding a prostitute if they need one, kind of like my joke about pot. Anyway, we're here to talk about a new book that's coming out May 4th, all about as if the Comedy Cellar doesn't get enough publicity, a book is coming out dedicated to the Comedy Cellar, a book I read and I did enjoy it. I think that Periel and Noam read it. I'm not sure.
I don't know if I read every page, but I read a lot of it. And Steve Fabricant read the whole thing.
Well, the book is written in a rather interesting style. I thought it was just going to be open it up. It says, and it starts in 1982 or whenever the Comedy Cellar started and goes chronologically. But the book actually is not formatted. Why don't you tell us, maybe, Andrew, how the book is formatted and why you chose the particular format that you did?
Well, my agent told me not to do it like that. So basically, it's hard. It started out as kind of a biography of a place, of the Comedy Cellar. And when you're telling the biography of a place or any kind of biography, sometimes the early years are a bit boring. Nobody really wants to read those bits. And this kind of a big chunk of this book was about kind of Louis C.K. as well, and the stuff, Noam's kind of handling of that situation. So I thought I could just start at that and work backwards from there. Then people get the thing that they probably really came for, and then they work backwards from there. There was also a thing that Noam had said at one point, which was, it's like we're looking at the world through a magnifying lens, and we just keep zooming in and zooming in and zooming in. So there's always something ugly to look at. And I thought, like, over the years, what if we zoomed out and kind of saw where we came from, how we got here, why we got to this point, why we progress, even, with the friction that comes with progressing, why we do it, whether we're progressing at the right pace, whether we've kind of made the right decisions along the way, what it was like before we kind of, changed our language so much before we made all these decisions, what it was like before, and was it really, better that way, as some people kind of hint these days, or was it better now?
Well, also the book is not written in a normal kind of narration style. It's basically a compilation of interviews and emails. Yeah.
Well, I didn't know how to tell the story really. So you just start experimenting, trying to figure it out. Most of it's transcripts of interviews with people, and I guess the main reason I chose to do transcripts was when you talk to comedians these days and you put them on the record about stuff, you kind of there's a great deal of risk for them, and I wanted to kind of show that they weren't volunteering to say these things, these comments, these quotes weren't coming out of nowhere, that there was someone like provoking them to say these things, there was someone leading them to say these things. There's also certain things that I wanted to do, like admit that I found some of the jokes funny that we're talking about. So I ended up feeling like I had to put myself in the book in some way, and transcripts seemed to be the best way to do that. Yeah. And one of the people I interviewed was, go on. Sorry, Dan, go on.
Well, I was saying that if you're a longtime podcast listener, you'll recognize many of the anecdotes that are in the book. He discusses the Louis C.K. episode, the Sam Morrill controversy, where Sam told a joke that provoked outrage among one of the customers. The table being moved. What else is up? The highlights of 9/11 and what happened after. The one thing you didn't hit, of course, was the COVID shutdown, because I guess you were finished writing the book prior to the COVID shutdown. That would have been, I assume you would have put that in the book had it been published.
Yeah, so I'd finished the book before that happened, and we did talk to my publisher about whether we should update it for the US version, and they didn't want to. So we left it as it. It kind of hints in one of the interviews with Noam, actually, like, you know, there's going to be something coming on the horizon, something bad that's going to cause, you know, what's it going to be? We're just waiting to see what it will be. And this kind of came along and the place was shut down for ages, you know.
You could have gotten that as an answer from any Jewish interview subjects. Pretty generic Jewish answer.
Yeah, but no, so the COVID's not it. But you're right, lots of it's stuff that's being mentioned on the podcast. You know, the kind of podcast is a kind of good lead for, oh, there's a little interesting story, there's an interesting story. And so you mentioned that Sam Morrill story. So what I did was take some stuff that had been mentioned on the podcast, and then I went and interviewed people about those things. But the interesting thing about that was I went and tracked down the customer and got her point of view of that situation and sort of see what she said about it and, you know, why it was that joke upset her so much and stuff. And I had her email already, had kind of Noam's email to her. That was kind of useful stuff. But yeah, I wanted to go and then talk to Sam, and I wanted to talk to her and kind of get the other side of it. That's kind of one of the main things I wanted to do with this book, was also show that, you know, the audience gets a kind of a hard time sometimes when they complain, and their complaint gets not by Noam and the Cellar, but some of the comedians kind of dismiss it a little bit. And I just wanted to see whether, you know, there was something more in these complaints and where they were coming from.
Well, I mean, I don't know if anyone says that, and if anybody else has any other questions, but I'm curious about this, Andrew. What made you want to write a book about the Comedy Cellar? Like, what made you want to devote a few years of your life to doing a deep dive on this place? And what made you think that that people will want to buy a book and read about it? Like, what is the allure of the Comedy Cellar? The thing that got me into it was basically, you know, kind of all those. It was first of all Louis C.K. when he kind of became famous in the UK. Started looking up him on the internet, discovered all those kind of Opie and Anthony comedians, and just the way that they talk to each other, this kind of honesty that they had with each other. You know, there was nothing like that in the UK that I could see, where the comedians talk to each other in that way. So I was really interested in that. They all talked about the Comedy Cellar. The Comedy Cellar seemed to be the hub of all this stuff coming out. And then I think I heard you on one of Robert Kelly's podcasts, and I don't want to kiss your ass here, but but it's like the way you talk about these things and the kind of responses that you gave to customers as well. I found that quite interesting, and I don't think that was very typical of kind of comedy club owners necessarily. The way you took it seriously and gave them serious answers, and you kind of weighed up, you know, what they would like to happen with your principles. That was kind of the root of what I wanted to write about. Yeah. I'm sorry, John. I'm going to let you speak in 1 second. I'm sorry, but just to tell the audience, Andrew also started. I forgot. You started by doing an art article where you did you took a comedy lesson and went on stage or something, right?
Yeah, that was for British Airways In-Flight magazine. Basically, because I had heard about the Comedy Cellar, I kind of, you know, seen some stuff about it, read some stuff about it. So I pitched it to this magazine, British Airways In-Flight magazine. The great thing about an in-flight magazine is they can fly you anywhere and they'll put you up in hotels. So, but they wanted to send a celebrity over to do it. And I said, well, I want to write about it. And they said, okay, well, will you do stand-up? Could that be the piece? You go and do stand-up there? And that was, so I didn't really want to, but that was the way I could get the piece and come over and do it. So I came over, I did like Rick Crone's class. They have like an end of class show. So I
jumped up on stage and did that. And Rick Crone kind of guided me through. Jim Norton gave me some tips and stuff. It was horrendous. It was absolutely horrendous. It's
Did
not
they tell you to drop that silly accent? Anyway, Laster,
No.
what did you want to say, Laster? Go ahead.
You know, I think that you know, because you know, sometimes when you're in the game, you forget, not in a bad way, but I think that sometimes we forget what a big deal the Cellar is to people on the outside. Do you know what I mean? And I've not been at the Cellar very long. I mean, I've been there for a while, and I was by the grace of God, I was embraced a lot faster than people who've been there the amount of time that I've been there. You know, a lot of times people seemingly think that I've been at the Cellar 15, 20 years like some of the veterans. I haven't. But I've been there a short enough time to remember the way that people revere the Cellar when you're on the outside. Do you know what I mean? And it's a, you know, and again, you know, like Andy was saying, not to blow smoke up your ass, it's a huge deal. Do you know what I mean? Like the Cellar, not for nothing, man, is the Yankee Stadium of comedy. So when you say I work at the Cellar, it changes the conversation. People no longer are like, oh, this guy does comedy. People are like, and I mean very different from the clubs in LA, because the clubs in LA, they have open mic nights at those clubs. They have this, they have that. When you say the Cellar, that means that you went through you went through a vetting that doesn't also include open mic night and some of these freak shows that they have at some of these other very good. No, I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm saying that these other clubs have other shit going on inside of them. The Cellar does not. Either you are in this elite group of folks or you're not. You don't do a mic at the Cellar. You don't have some fucking juggling show that goes on after the Cellar closes down. It doesn't work like that. You walked over some hot coals to get in that joint, and people treat it as such.
That's such an incredible sort of segue into the Cellar reopening in.
Well, do we also want to discuss John's role in the book? Because John is mentioned, more than mentioned. There's a whole, I think, chapter about Jon Laster in Andy's book.
There is. I don't know if John even knows that, though, because I emailed you.
Didn't
John.
know that.
No. Because I emailed you to let you know.
You're not going to like it, John.
I didn't hear back. But yeah, no, there's that night in, I think it was January 2017 when you were emceeing the show. And do you remember that, John?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I remember I interviewed you at the Cellar one time about that. So that's that's in there.
No, I definitely remember when we sat down and talked about it, bro.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, but that's, you know what's so crazy is even after all that, so that lineup started with Ryan.
Just to recap, they're talking about the night that during Jon Laster was emceeing, and Amy Schumer, Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Aziz. Am I missing anybody?
Yeah.
John's going to go through it.
Yeah. You know what? Like I said, it started with Ryan Hamilton. I know this is going to sound crazy. I thought Ryan had the best set. I know it's going to. Yeah, Ryan. So Ryan, and then after that it was Dave Attell, and then Seinfeld, and then Amy Schumer, and then Aziz, and then Chris Rock, and then Dave Chappelle, and it ended up being coined the $1 billion show.
But John, that point about Ryan having the best sets, not necessarily surprising, because when these bigger names come to the Cellar, they often will do all new stuff. They're there to work on new material.
Yes.
And Ryan is there to kill, because we're not, he's not tenured, if you will. So, he has to kill.
You know what? One of the craziest things is that I've never discussed about that show is if you listen to that lineup, I still waited until the next day to ask Esty if she thought that was the best lineup. Imagine hosting a show like that and still having to go check it in with somebody to make sure. And she said, oh yeah, that was the White Whale. She said, John, there's been great shows here, but you rode the white whale. That was the big one.
Wow.
Ariel, can you allow screen sharing, please, so I can put the picture up? I know this is.
You can.
Ariel has a checklist of one thing she's supposed to do before the show, and then okay, there we go. So this is the. It would have been. I wanted to bring it up while Laster was describing it, but I couldn't. So this is it. It was. But Seinfeld had already gone home, you know, because his girlfriend wants his wife likes him home early, and had Aziz, Chris Rock, Amy Schumer, Dave Chappelle, Dave Attell, Jerry Seinfeld, and Ryan Hamilton all on the same show.
You know what's funny about Seinfeld leaving too, Noam, was when the show was about to start and people were filing into the table, the crazy thing was, as I'm asking, because I was like, hey, you know, what's going on over here? And we both said to one another, it doesn't matter because there's no way we can get all of them up on this show. So we actually were like, don't worry about that. And I'm sure that's why Seinfeld left. There's no way that he would have known what was coming down the pike and he would have left. We all assumed, no way we can get all of them up on the show. And then, to be flagrantly honest, once Amy Schumer went on stage, it broke the dam because the show was already of a historical nature. You got Aziz, who was getting ready for SNL. He's going on. So now you got Aziz, Amy Schumer, Seinfeld, Dave Attell have already hit the stage. So really, you would have been leaving Chris and Dave out. And they were like, fuck that.
Right.
You're not going to leave us out of this story. So now you can get them all on the show. And you almost have to. You just couldn't. And people were asking me, yo, man, were you killing in between the comedians? I was introducing them as fast as humanly possible. Who wants to fuck up that lineup? Sometimes the best thing you can do is shut up and get out the way.
Most of the time, John. I was going to tell you that, by the way.
Most of the time.
I'm teasing.
I interviewed Ryan Hamilton about that night as well, and the funny thing for Ryan was he had to leave as soon as his set was done because he had a flight to Atlanta for a show. So he did a set, and then he didn't have any clue what was happening after that. Yeah.
He as a matter of fact, immediately walked out the door after he got off stage. Yeah, he walked straight out the door.
So Andrew, after embedding yourself for how many years? How many years were you at the Cellar on and off from beginning to?
So, I mean, I never really embedded there. I live in England. I live in Newcastle, and I took trips over. The first time I interviewed you was in about 2012, I think. And the book
came out in 2000.
It came out last year in the UK, and it's coming out this year in America.
So 6 or 7 years you were at this.
I was in contact with you, interviewing you on the phone or in person, and making trips over,
So what did you learn from all those years? You might be the world's greatest expert on the Comedy Cellar.
I don't know. We'll find out when it comes out and everyone points out my errors. But one of the things when people, so we were just talking about that night of like all these amazing comedians, but I don't want people to think that the book's just like this thing saying like how amazing the Cellar is. It like tackles some of the difficult stuff as well, like the return of Louis C.K. and things like that. But what did I learn? Well, I think I mean, God, I sound like such a creepier, but it is about clarity of thought, like trying to think things through carefully when you're making a decision and stuff. I saw some of that going on. One of the interesting things about this book, and one of the things that drew me to the Cellar, was kind of the relationship, you and your dad, basically. It's a father and son book in a lot of ways. It's your dad had the Cellar, and then you take it over. Yeah. And it's like how you steered the Cellar through these more difficult times. Your dad steered it through some difficult times financially, and then you steered it through these more difficult times, culturally, because you've taken a lot of flack. Technology means that the flack's a lot more vocal, and how you deal with that. And so you still have to steer the Cellar through these times, and other clubs can either other clubs can become more outrageous, and it's like, do you become as a Cellar more outrageous, or do you kind of not go down that route? You got to try and figure all that stuff out. So I was kind of interested in that, and I mean, the big reason I started writing the book was as a kind of I felt defensive of what some of the people were saying about the comedians. So I've learned a lot more about different people's points of view on that whole debate. Yeah.
I mean, you know what? In terms of you talking about like all those celebrities coming down to the Cellar, in the book is not about that. Mm. When especially newer comedians are talking about the Cellar, I am quick to tell them that they have it backwards. People think that the Cellar is what it is because all of these big comedians come there. And I keep telling people, you know, the Cellar is what it is because they treat little people like me like they're big comedians. So when something happens, you feel like that's home. It's just the opposite. There's people, they don't allow people recording. There's no picture taking. If somebody is acting an asshole, the Cellar puts them out. Other places, we got to put up with that shit. So it's really the protection of the comedians. It's not that these big comedians come down. It's that they treat comedians at all levels the right way that happen to then become bigger stars and come back. You feel at home there. You feel safe there. You know no one's going to record you there. You know that there's security there. You know they're going to feed you there. It's the taking care of us that makes us come back. It's not the other way around. It's not that these astronomically big comedians keep showing up to the Cellar and that's why it's the Cellar. It's the other way around. It's the Cellar treats all the nobodies like me like they are somebody. And then when something happens for them, that's where they run back to. You know you can work out there without it ending up on YouTube and you putting Bill Cosby out of business. Or, you know, one of these crazy stories taken off. You can work on your material without it being on YouTube in the morning. And you're treated like family there. That's why people come back.
Thanks, John.
It's not the other way around.
Well, but it feeds on itself because everything you say is true. And then when the celebrities do come, of course, it gets talked about. The publicity machine goes into action, and that brings more audience to the Comedy Cellar, which makes it an even better place to work. So it's just a constant, loop.
I just want to clarify what Dan said that when he said a publicity machine, I'm not sure what he means by that. We don't have a publicity machine.
Oh, no, I mean, not your publicity machine. I mean, you just Twitter and the people.com, whoever writes about these things.
Yeah.
You don't do any publicity as far as I know on your end, but the publicity is there nonetheless.
Yeah, well, this actually, Periel and I had a big argument about this the other day, where when that picture came out of the of all those people on stage on that billion night of comedy night, someone who worked for me had Instagrammed it, and innocently enough, and I got upset and I told him to take it down right away, and things like this has happened before. And Periel's like, why? I can't imitate her voice, but if somebody could scratch on a blackboard while I'm talking,
Jessica Person can.
But and she said, why don't you put it on? But what did you say, Periel?
I said that was the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. Why? I said, why? Yeah, totally. Why would a comedy club want to put up a picture of like the best night they've ever had? That makes
I'll be flagrantly honest with you, Noam, and I've never told anyone this.
Yeah.
To me, I was looking, I wanted there to be documentation. So I told Will Sylvince to come downstairs, gave him my phone. I said, I'm going to run on stage and I'm going to drag them on stage after it's over. I need you to take this picture. And Will said, are you sure? And I said, bro, this needs to be documented. Take the picture.
No, so to be clear, I'm happy the picture. It absolutely, Will always takes pictures, and that's great. We definitely want the documentation. What Periel and
you just don't want anybody to see it.
No, I'm happy if people see it. If Chris Rock wants to tweet it out, or someone of the comedians wants to do it, that's their likeness to do what they please. And what people don't seem to understand is that I understand is that if these guys come down here and do the show, and all of a sudden I'm hawking it and tweeting it and whatever it is, it's a little vulgar. It's like, isn't it enough that these guys came down and graced the stage and created a historic night at the club without me trying to now take their likenesses, which I couldn't afford to go through their agent and ever buy for a proper ad. Hey, I want Chris Rock to do an ad for the Cellar. No fuck. Okay, give us $200,000. Maybe we'll talk, right? So I snap a picture of him on the stage. And it's not my place to tweet it out. That's my opinion. It's his place to tweet it out. If customers do it, what can I do about that? I benefit from that. I can't lie. But
well, the customers, you got to keep in mind, Noam, by then their stuff was bagged up, so they couldn't do it. But I'm not gonna lie to you. The only reason that I asked Will to do it is because I was shocked in the hallway when I saw them talking, and to them it was a big deal.
Yeah.
I wasn't quite sure until I heard them talking, and that's when I said, Will, I'm gonna drag them on stage. When I do, fire. Because there needs to be some evidence, some documentation of what happened here. And then I posted it on my Instagram, and that's when CNN picked it up and wrapped it around.
Not just this instance. I've had this trouble with other people. And one time, I don't want to give the names and the details, but one time somebody who worked for me, without my permission, did tweet out a famous comedian on stage. And sure enough, somebody in that person's family saw the tweet, and the comedian was like, what's up with this? Like, it's like, because he wasn't happy about the fact that all of a sudden his likeness was tweeted out on stage. And I died 1,000 deaths because it's exactly what I try to explain to everybody not to do. And for whatever reason, thank God, because it gives me a competitive advantage. For whatever reason, people they don't get this. I don't know what's so hard to get, but they don't get it.
You're saying your competition.
What's that, Dan?
No, you're saying your competitors don't get it. You're the other comedy club owners. You're saying don't get it.
Yeah.
And
my friends, Periel doesn't get it.
No. I want to be very clear with what I was saying. When you guys were telling me what happened the other day, my understanding was that everybody got on stage and posed for a picture. What I was saying was that I think that in this day and age, if you're at that level of celebrity and you pose for a picture, you are tacitly agreeing to that picture being posted somewhere.
No,
that's what you're complicit in that.
I think Periel's point is a valid one. They were on stage posing for that picture. I think the expectation that it would wind up somewhere, somehow on social media, it was pretty much a certainty.
Well, yes, but that's not my point. Of course, it can wind up somewhere on social media. The point if Chris Rock walks down the street wearing a Nike T-shirt, and somebody shoots a picture of Chris Rock, or he takes a selfie with someone and they post it, that's fine. But if Nike then puts it in there on their Twitter, that's a little bit different now. Now they're grabbing an endorsement from him in a certain way.
Fair enough. It wasn't posted under the Comedy Cellar Instagram account, however, and that's something that you would have been against, but it was posted and you benefited from it.
Chris Rock posted it. Chris Rock posted it. That's terrific. But that's for him to do.
Can I just say, from the point of view of the audience as well? So from an audience member's point of view, you kind of do want a club to kind of maintain some mystique. And when any kind of venue or something like that starts churning out loads of publicity stuff, putting loads of stuff, every time a comedian turns up, but they're putting it online and things like that, it just doesn't seem the same to the audience. Whereas if you don't really know what's happening in that room down in the cellar when you walk past it, you don't know who's going on stage that night. There's a mystique about it. And if the comedians tweet out pictures and stuff, that's interesting. But yeah, if the club starts, I didn't even like it when you started doing T-shirts. I kind of don't want any of that stuff. You just want it to be a functioning comedy room where people go down, tell jokes, and nobody knows what happened in that room, and then they come out, unless, the comedians tweet about it.
I'll tell you about the people who don't know what happened. So that was, I think, a 9-something show. And we get out of there that night around 1, right? The show went for over 2 hours, right? Almost 3 hours, right, the show? But I feel sorry for the people who were standing in line for the next show. First of all, your show started 3 hours late, and then you missed the greatest organic comedy show of all time.
That's brutal.
Yeah, but they got to see Rich Voss.
You should happens a lot.
I had to pick somebody.
That happens a lot at the Comedy Cellar, where a big celebrity will go on at the Comedy Cellar, and he will oftentimes go do a longer set than the other comics do. So the show runs late. So the next show starts late. So not only do the audience for the next show have to wait but then they missed, the good show. So that does sometimes happen.
And you know what else is crazy, Dan? That same night, so they're sitting around after it's over, right? And everybody was like, "Hey, are you going to go on the next show?" But how do you top that show? So everybody just was like, "Nah, we're done." Like we were all standing around like, "Yo, that was fucking crazy." And then everybody was like, "Yeah, I think we should quit while we're ahead and just shut it down." Like no one's going, you know what I mean?
So Andrew, would you say that, because it's interesting, as you started writing this book, this whole kind of free speech issue, it was just bubbling up, right? But people really weren't worried about. I wasn't worried about stuff back then, and now it's gotten even scarier than it was when the book came out. It just keeps getting worse and worse. What's your comment on all that stuff, and how does it affect your book?
Well, that's why I've had to be really careful about kind of what I've, put in of comedians' acts and stuff like that. Because I'm talking about jokes that people made a few years ago. And then, you don't want people to get in trouble for what they said a few years ago. And it's me dragging it up. That's what the book's about. It's like, how do we kind of navigate this? Do we just have these special places where, there's more free reign? That's kind of a comment that Stuart Lee, this British comedian, said. He said there's got to be like a room where you have these different rules, and I think that's what we have to do. I don't like. I have no idea how to control what's happening online anymore. I've just ducked out of it in terms of social media and stuff, because I just, especially when you try to do something like write a book, and I'm sure it's the same for comedians. If you pay too much attention to social media, to Twitter and things like that, it just makes you remove any edge to anything you're doing. It's just like this terrible editor on your shoulder, just saying, "Oh, don't put that in, don't put that in, don't put that in." And I think that's just terrible for any kind of creative work. So I don't know what to do about it other than try and ignore it and just make sure you can defend what you do publish.
That's a pretty.
How are the?
Sorry, go ahead.
I was wondering how the sales were, and if this book about the cellar is a best seller.
It's coming out now.
Fantastic. It's not out in America yet. Comes out in May. I don't know how it's going to do. We couldn't, when we're just talking about that free speech stuff there, there's lots of stuff in here that's quite controversial, and I couldn't get an American publisher for it. It's my British publisher who's putting it. It went round loads of American publishers. People looked at it. They didn't like it. I don't know. It might be because of who's writing it, me. It might be because of the way I've written it, the backwards thing. And it might be because of the content in the book as well. I don't know. But no American publishers wanted it. I couldn't sell it. So the British publisher's putting it out. It's not going to be a bestseller. I just hope that some people kind of read it and take interest in it. The kind of people who are interested in that whole, what can we say, who can say it, debate are the people who are going to be interested in it, I think. And as soon as you say something like that, people think, oh, this is going to be, a one-sided affair. It's not that. I've tried to kind of like approach it from lots of different angles and use lots of different examples to illustrate it. Sorry, no.
It's okay. No, you were talking while I was trying to interrupt. What if somebody were to get canceled from something in this book? What do you think is the most likely candidate to get somebody canceled in this book?
Oh yeah.
What worries you most?
Me. I've got stuff in there. There was a thing. There was an introduction in it for the British edition that had some more difficult words in it, and that's been removed for the American edition. I do some work for like.
Wait, you removed words?
I removed the whole intro, and because it was for the British audience,
Andy's like, the cover was in blackface.
So we took that off. My author's photo, yeah.
Was the word the N-word, or was it something? There's nothing as bad as that. So was it something less?
No, not less. Yeah, that was in there. There was loads of those words in there because it was an interview I was doing with a British comedian where we were talking about all these different words. But these things mean it's a different climate in the UK. I'm a British person, so when you're going to, the intro was me talking to a British comedian to try and explain the Comedy Cellar to the British audience. So that's why we removed it.
But also, I kind of wouldn't have wanted that in there for the American edition because, like I said, I'm a British person publishing a book into the American market. I don't know America well enough to kind of do that sort of stuff. The things have changed since I wrote the book, where it's become so intent doesn't matter anymore. Intent of how you're going to use these words. You can't use these words when discussing these words either and stuff. So that's all kind of changed. So if I kept those words in there, it's like you know, you can't pretend that you don't know the kind of rules have changed. So it's kind of provocative. It's too provocative, and that doesn't suit me at all. That's not the kind of person I am. So it looked like I was deliberately trying to wind people up or something by using these words. So those are kind of gone, you know.
Now, I don't want to get off on this tangent, but I just want to say, in regard to that, I just read there was this news story the other day about somebody had said something anti-Semitic. I don't remember what the details were. And in the news story, they wouldn't print what the person had said. And it infuriated me. Like, I'm Jewish. Like, well, who are you exactly you were protecting? Like, I don't know. Did he call him a kike? Did he call him a dumb Jew? Did he say, take your goddamn he-bass? Like, was it a joke? Like, the reporter essentially decides that it's an anti-Semitic remark. And I, as the Jewish person, they think I need to be protected from this. Like if you're with the N-word thing, like, okay, people shouldn't be using it. But if somebody said, like, let's say a politician said a racist comment about blacks, as a black person, I'm going to want to know what exactly did he say? Because that matters to me, you know. So
I think we know what he said.
No, but that's the thing. Well, you might think with the black thing, because obviously the N-word, but with a Jewish anti-Semitic comment, I don't know what it was, but I'm just insulted that they're treating adults like children. I can't read the word that they said. Really?
And that's quite a new thing as well. That's like relative. If you look back, you know, through magazines and newspapers, it was being used until relatively recently. Whatever word it was, the word would be printed, you know. But it's kind of odd that it's kind of changed.
There are at least 5 channels on basic cable where all you can see are Holocaust films, okay? Like every history, like, and you can't scroll through the channels without seeing some old clip of the Jews in a mass grave or the Jews emaciated or the Nazis. This is all okay. But in the daily paper, we shall not be able to read an anti-Semitic remark. A word.
But that's not the typical case. Usually they would put the word and they would put like asterisks.
Yeah, but I'm saying it's getting worse and worse. This is a new thing. I never saw this before. All of a sudden now, it's not just the N-word. It's all offensive words now are being, they won't print them. Anyway, it's crazy.
But the N-word, they will say the N-word so that you know exactly. I mean, it's not like the information is being hidden. They say he said, and then.
As recently as like 10 months ago, the New York Times actually would write out the N-word if it was newsworthy. I guess now that's stopped altogether. But I mean, I did some research on this. There were many, many references. I mean, it's a horrible word. So is a video of somebody jumping out of a building to his death. So is a video of George Floyd. Do they blur out the George Floyd video to protect us from seeing the horrible truth of the? No, they don't. They show it to us because it's the news. But a word is if it's in the news is more. That's more necessary to protect us from than seeing George Floyd dying under the policeman's neck. I don't think it holds up to scrutiny, but that's the world we live in, so that's it.
I mean, I think the George Floyd situation is imperative that you see it because otherwise you won't believe it.
Yeah. No. Well, they can.
I kind of understand why it's necessary to show that.
John,
they don't.
This is my thing. You tell me if you're wrong. And I've spoken to a lot. I think I've spoken to you about this, but I've spoken to tons of people of all races and colors. We're all adults. And I think that it's quite overblown that adults think they can't read a troubling word if it's just a reportage of something that happened in the real world. A quote, we hear it in movies, we hear it in Quentin Tarantino, we hear it in jokes, we hear it in, and if there was ever a time it's most appropriate to hear it, it would be in order to acquaint ourselves with troubling news in the real world so that we can react to it and whatever it is. That's just my opinion, you know, but it's just interesting to me how it quickly morphed from just that one word which has a very, very unique place in American history, and there's nothing like it, and it can't be compared to any other slur. And say, okay, we're gonna make an exception. We're just gonna say it says something about who we want to be by recognizing this one word as something we're not gonna say. It's not really, maybe it's not really that we can't hear it. It's that it's showing, it's a statement of who we are culturally by having this cultural norm. You know, and okay, I can make that argument, but then the way it quickly just dribbles down to anything that might offend somebody is they're not treating us like adults anymore. That's what I think.
In my book, the reason why I kind of kept some of those words in, there was lots of different words, and kind of one's more applicable to the UK than America. The reason I kept them in when I had that interview in that, then we removed because it wasn't of any use to Americans. Because if I took one word out, I couldn't decide which word I would take out, and then I'd have to be removing like lots of different words because there were all these different racially offensive words that the kind of wouldn't make sense in the US. You wouldn't know these words, but it's like you would have to remove all of these words, and then it just becomes a bit, you know, once you start going down that slope, it's kind of difficult. David Baddiel, the British comedian, he just wrote a book about this. You know, Jews Don't Count. That book. I don't know if you've heard about it.
I agree with it, but I didn't read it.
Yeah, but he's talking about, you know, he wants it to be the Y word, and he wants that word not to be used anymore.
What Y word?
YID.
Yid.
Yeah. So people say that at there's a British football team, Spurs, and there's lots of Jewish supporters. So they kind of, you know, reappropriated that word and they called themselves that. And so he's kind of like saying we shouldn't use that word anymore, even if you're using it as like a, you know, taking back control of it.
Listen, the silly conceit of all this is to think that by getting a racist or a bigot not to use a word, that you've changed anything at all. You haven't changed anything. He's just every bit as racist and bigoted as he ever was. He will find a new word. They will find a new way or a new whatever it is to say what it is that they want to say. It's just, to me, it's just silly. As a matter of fact, I actually like when people say it because I like to know. Like, no, I think it's like I think it's good to be able to catch people saying that. It tells you who the people are, you know.
But does it not make it a hostile atmosphere if people are using these words and stuff? You know, like if you're in the shop and someone uses it casually, it's like, you don't want to hear that. You don't want to be around that.
It absolutely creates a hostile atmosphere. And there was a write-up about interview that I did for the Rolling Stone about this guy who had said the N-word. And I almost completely knocked his head off. By the grace of God, Gary Veter was standing next to me. So when I went to punch him, I bumped into Veter.
What was the context?
I swear to God, so the show's over with, and he said, hey, Trump won the presidency, so we can say nigger now.
Oh, well, then he deserves you to be angry for that.
Right, but I'm just saying, once that comes out of your mouth, and then something happens, you know what I'm saying? And then I would have been the bad guy. Thank God Veter was standing there, because I really went to, not even thinking about it, just react, you know what I mean? And I bumped into Veter before I knocked this dude's all his teeth out.
Well, that's a horrible use of the word, yeah.
And it saved me.
Yeah.
And shortly thereafter, after the article came out, I do this interview with this awesome, like 14-year-old who interviewed me down the street. And she said, my mom says, as a young Black woman, I should not use that word. And, you know, white people are like, hey, we hear it in rap songs, which is the most vile thing you can say to a Black person. And I said,
why is that a vile thing?
Because it's just, you know, the way that I explained it to the little girl is I said, since the beginning of time, and I'm not exaggerating here, since the beginning of time, there has always been what is known as intrapersonal communication, meaning I'm not going to say to you, hey, Noam, I saw you scream at your kid, so why can't I scream at your kid? I saw you, you know, you called your wife a bitch. Why can't I call your wife a bitch? There's always communication that goes on within families. My basketball coach used to throw basketballs at my head when I wasn't looking. If I walk down the street and someone else throws a basketball at my head, guess what? You about to get knocked the fuck out. So there's
So, John,
always been communication within groups of people
I don't
that
think
is tolerated.
I don't think I made my question clear. So yeah, I agree with that, and I think white people.
So don't tell me that I can't use the N-word because some white.
No, of course not. I've always thought that's a ridiculous argument too. That although some people actually really don't seem to get it, that when a word, exactly as you put it, when two black people use the word, it becomes an affectionate term in a way, like, you know, we're but that's not
personal communication.
Right,
it exists in lots of different groups.
But that's not what I thought I heard you explaining. So maybe I got it wrong. But what I'm thinking is that kids who grow up hearing a word in a rap song, it's not realistic to think that they're going to have the life wisdom to understand that argument that you just made.
Oh, they fucking know that.
No, you cannot explain
I tell you what.
You cannot explain to a 12-year-old in a way that he's going to understand.
Yo, let me tell you how I know.
John, hear me out. You cannot explain to a 12-year-old who hears the radio every day. You can tell him, don't say that word. But you're not going to be able to explain to him in a way that he actually understands until he's lived life.
Let me tell you how I know. Let me tell you how I know what you're saying is nonsensical. If that 12-year-old is in a gym with a bunch of other little black boy 12-year-olds, somehow that little white boy will know not to say that.
Yes, that he'll know not to say it to keep his. Like I said, to not get punished, but he won't understand. John, he won't. You can. I mean, this is not particular to this point. This is particular to many points about 12-year-olds. He will not understand the moral gravity of what he's done until he's much older, has lived, has read, has understood. Listen, you react to that word because of your knowledge of the African-American experience in this country, your bitter experience as an African-American person in growing up in this country, and all of it. This is all, it's all in a bundle of emotion to you that you can call up reflexively. A 12-year-old knows nothing more than, I better not say this word because I'll get punished or they might punch me. In the same way in the same way kids learn not to call somebody fat, but they don't really understand pain of causing pain in another person until as they get older. That's why kids are so cruel. Why are kids so cruel? Because they don't understand cruelty at that age.
Right. But
when it's cruelty when it's a cruelty that also requires a knowledge of history and a knowledge, that is not, to me, that's not 12-year-olds I know. I couldn't have understood it at 12-year-olds like I understand it now.
Right, but no, you're missing the point. What I'm saying is I don't need that 12-year-old to become an adult, nor as an adult do I ever need you to understand the pain, because you never will as a white person. What I need you to do is be respectful of the fact that I have asked you not to call me that, period. You're never going to get the pain, whether you're 12 or 112.
I don't think that's realistic.
Don't do it.
Okay, well, let me tell you this. When I see a bunch of 12-year-old black kids on the basketball court going ching-chong, ching-chong, ching-chong to some Asian person who walked by, which I've seen more than once in my life, I say, oh, these kids, you know, but I don't react to it as if I saw some black businessmen doing it. It's just not the same thing. I understand it's a bunch of punk-ass kids who don't know any better. Somebody's told them they're not supposed to say this. They certainly know they're not supposed to say it, but they don't know the way a grown black attorney would understand not to say it. That's all I'm saying. It's 12 years old.
Yeah, I'm saying wrong is wrong, and I'm saying no matter what age they are, they're never going to understand the pain. So just don't do it because someone asked you not to do that.
Yeah, well, just don't do it. But kids do. You know, kids do stuff they're not supposed to do, and they do, and they especially do stuff that's forbidden to them. That's the way kids are, and we need to keep our humanity about judging our children. My goodness, I think this is not any kind of defense of kids being racist. I'm just saying, you know, they're kids. They're gonna do this because we see kids like this woman, this black woman got canceled for her. She was already a little older, but she was 16 or 17 when she tweeted something about Asians. The editor of Teen Vogue, right? She got fired for a tweet that she made as a teenager. This black woman, she understands now. She obviously didn't quite understand when she was a teenager. And I don't think many people are happy that she got fired. I think most people have said, why are they firing her for a teenage tweet? She was a teenager.
I had somebody DM me 50 times the other day talking about, would you please, I see Amy Schumer follows you, would you please tell Amy Schumer that some of the things that she said, this, that, the other. I said to this person, because normally I don't respond. I responded back this week. I said, hey man, Amy posted several times this week about Stop Asian Hate. I know Amy personally. Amy doesn't believe in that. You know what I mean? If you look at her stories right now, you'll see that she's posted several times about Stop Asian Hate. And this person responds, yeah, but you don't understand. You got to let her know that what she, and I said, are you looking for someone to change or are you looking for revenge?
Revenge.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And there's a difference. There's a difference. If someone is now on your side, what are you bitching about?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
you're looking for some payback. That's different from someone who has said, wow, you know what, that shit I said was fucked up. This shit ain't right. Done. We're done here. I'm not going to keep on pressing. You're looking for revenge. And now we're done talking.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you about that.
Now we're fucking done talking. And I told that person, I said, and if you fucking send me enough, oh, and then they started with the, I'm sorry, but you got to understand, I'm about to block you. Okay, I don't want you to block me, so, you know, I'll leave it at that. Good, because now you're looking for something that you're not going to get here. I told you to go look. There's Stop Asian Hate all over our page. We're done talking here.
Yeah, I mean, I probably...
For the record, Amy Schumer never hated Asians. I'm going to
tell you. Never. I'm
going to go out on a limb here.
One of the least racist human beings I know. What are you talking about?
I do think that there's something about teaching children empathy, you know, that they don't need to understand all of the reasons why something is unkind. Like, I think that
teaching a child empathy is kind of like teaching me tackle football.
I don't agree with you. I don't agree with you.
You guys really making the argument that we can judge 12 years old as adults? Are we really
I didn't say that
now?
you should judge people who are 12 years old as adults. I said that I think that you can teach children empathy. I think.
Right, but you understand that it's complex for a 12-year-old to hear a forbidden term in pop music and explain to them that you know it may take them a little bit to get it. To really get it. They can do it. They can manage the behavior because they've been told to do it. But to really internalize these arguments like John, to understand why it's okay for black people to use it with each other, what the history of it is, the pain that it causes, that this particular word isn't just like all the, there's 20 different words I tell my kids they can't use. And the N-word is one of them. Do I really think that they understand that the N-word is in a category of its own?
I will say this.
You know, don't call little girls fat, and don't make fun of the kid that has a stutter, and don't use the N-word. And they're like, yes, daddy, yes, daddy, yes. And they probably will. But if you really think that at 9 years old, my daughter really understands the hierarchy, the difference, that's the pain of one word is supposed to, no, I'm telling you, she doesn't.
You know, I will say this, Noam, is that when I was a kid, thinking back, I really think I did get it, now that I think of it.
Good, you're precocious.
I really do. I said fuck and I said shit, and I probably said, you know, maybe a racial slur here. I did not say the N-word.
Right, but so much so that if you were...
I knew the gravity. And my parents never told me not to say it.
Dan,
it never came up in the house.
So much so that if you were with your friends in a room playing 45s and the N-word was anything, you wouldn't sing along with the song. That level of understanding, that's what I'm saying.
But no, I think you're... But no, I think you're missing the point.
We didn't have those songs in those days. I heard Sunshine on a Cloudy Day. I'm old.
Yeah, but also this whole idea that you need to understand and internalize. No one's asking you to do that. I'm asking you to fucking be respectful.
But kids are not respectful. Kids.
I don't ever expect you to fully understand. You act like at some point in time you're gonna grow up and be an adult and be like, oh, now I know what it's like to be a black man. You're never gonna get it. So be respectful in the meantime.
I think I understood it when I was a kid about as well as I understand it. I think I really got it. I think I got it.
I
Maybe I'm just exceptional.
no,
Yes,
but
you are,
Donna
Dan.
Summer-
Yes, you are.
I remember seeing an interview with Donna Summer.
I don't think so. Listen, let me internalize it. Let's stop talking about the N word because it offends people that a white person talks about. Let me tell you this: the Holocaust. I've been raised on a diet of a Holocaust since I could feed myself. Right? I always understood what the Holocaust was, but at some point, I'd say in my 20s, I think I grappled with it in a different way. The enormity of it, the what it says about human nature. I mean, there's just levels upon levels of these things that you appreciate as you get older. If you want to say that at 10 years old, my daughter could understand the enormity of the Holocaust at 10 years old, I would have to say no, she can't. That's all I say. And I think that what we're likening by analogy is a deep emotional, philosophical, historical wisdom of life, understanding of certain concepts. And these concepts grow and your understanding grows as you get older. And unfortunately, for some people, they never seem to get it, quite honestly. Even some people who would not consider themselves racist still can't manage to understand why these jokes are not funny, you know? But that's a whole nother thing.
In a way, as a kid, I was more outraged by racism and slavery and the Holocaust than I am now, because now I understand
nuance.
I understand how imperfect adults are and how horrific the world can be, and when you're a kid, everything makes sense. Why would you cheat on your wife, for example? As a kid, couldn't imagine. Why would a man cheat on his wife? It doesn't make any sense. Now you get older, you're like, oh.
That's something John understood at 9 years old.
So when I first heard George Washington owned slaves, I couldn't believe it. I was like, wait a minute, I thought he was the greatest guy ever. Now as an adult, I understand, well, if you grew up in that time, maybe, and you internalized, certain things, maybe I would have done it too. I cannot say that I would not have owned slaves if I had grown up at that time in that place.
Yeah, but even that's the funny thing, because there was a tweet, I think by Nicole Hannah-Jones, where she talked about the White House being made by slave labor, slave penal labor, and
those are the ghosts of slavery coming back to turn your lights off. No,
that was weird. And I have to tell you, it struck me because I had heard a million times that the White House was made by slaves. And for some reason, when she tweeted that, it hit me, maybe the way she worded it, or maybe the context of the Black Lives Matter moment we were in, it did hit me emotionally in a way it never had before. I remember that. It's like, yeah, holy shit, that was slave labor, when I was 9, it could have never hit me that way. Anyway, we're beating a dead horse here. I actually think we agree. We all agree more than we disagree on this.
Right, but you know what else though, Noam? Like when someone says something, some fucked up remark about the Holocaust, right? My temperature doesn't go up. So I don't know what that feels like. Or I don't know what it feels like to hide my sexual identity as someone from the LGBTQ community. You know what I mean? And I never will. But that doesn't mean that I can't be respectful.
Yeah. Well, how about this?
I don't have to be able to internalize what they're feeling and say, you know what? If y'all say, don't use the F word talking about gay men, I'm done with it. We're done here. And I've never said it since. You say that to Vincent, I'm done.
I have to be on the stage in 15 minutes. Can we talk about the reopening of the Comedy Cellar that is this weekend, starting this Friday? After over a year.
What time is the first show?
Thanks for telling Laster, Diane. I'm kidding. You and your big mouth. I don't know. The first show's at 5:00, I think.
Yo, can I just tell you that I got a little choked up when the schedule came out and I was on that 5 o'clock show? I really did. I got a little teary-eyed thinking I'll be the first one to go back on stage in that show.
So
Yeah, that's
sweet,
nice.
John.
But I truly got choked up when the avails came through and I was like, I get to walk back on first.
And I'm happy it was you. When Ray Allen couldn't do it, you were my next choice.
Andrew, I mean, I really think it might be worth delaying publication of your book to include this return to the comedy. This might be a nice endpoint for your book. That the Cellar as
the second edition addendum.
Yeah, it doesn't work
The
right.
second edition.
Can we end with one? Go ahead, Andrew. You want answers?
No, I was going to say what you were just talking about before. We've moved past it, but what you were just talking about before is the end point of the book is Esty talking about the Holocaust, and she does talk about if you're not emotionally connected to it, you can't. If you're not emotionally, she says in the book, if you're not emotionally connected to it, you can't understand it. So my point of view on this has always been kind of what John was just saying, which is if you hurt someone's feelings, if you're not a dick. If you hurt someone's feelings, then you try and avoid that, don't you? So you just kind of pull back. And if you've seen that you've hurt someone's feelings, you don't use those words, you don't say these things and stuff.
But let's not lose sight of what is actually the main point here, which is not the particulars of this particular debate we're having, which is I think, a very healthy conversation to have, because hopefully there's at least a sense or two of what John has said, which I hadn't thought of, and I have to integrate and consider, and hopefully there's something that I might have said that John said, he might have a point there. But anyway, but what the Comedy Cellar stands for is our right to have these conversations, because it is not the particulars of what we're saying no longer allowed. It is the very conversation itself which can get us in trouble. You shall not speak to a black man about any subject that, you shall not tell a Jew, blah, blah, blah. And this is just, I think we all agree, this is unacceptable. This is the enemy, and this is the end of comedy. This is the end of comedy.
Well, I think to say it's the end of comedy is a bit exaggerated.
Why? Well, it's the end of comedy as it's, maybe we go back to, mother-in-law jokes, but
certainly not. No,
it's the end of the Louis C.K. Chris Rock type of comedy. That's,
maybe, maybe, but there've always been things that comedians would say at their peril, and those things have changed.
What did their peril mean? What did peril mean in 20 years ago? So people would get pissed.
The audience won't tolerate. Peril means periel means that the audience won't tolerate it. And of course, there's always been things. 20 years ago, I did a joke where I used the N-word, and we've talked about this. I very quickly learned not to do it again.
What do you mean, Dan? You told me you understood it at 9. Now you didn't know when you were a comedian?
I understood not to use it in anger at 9. But I was using it.
We were never talking about using it in anger. But all right, go ahead.
I was using a social commentary at 24. And I did it once. And I said, okay, this didn't work out so good. Some people still did. Even beyond that, people were still doing it, but there's always been red lines that the audience won't tolerate.
Carlin used it. Carlin used the word right up to the end.
And again, am I supposed to sit here and be like, oh, we got to cancel Dan, or say, hey, welcome to the right side of the conversation? Yeah. Should I be sitting around looking for revenge on Dan, knowing that Dan's not in any way like that? Do you know what I mean? Like, that's why when the guy kept going on and on, I'm like, no, you're looking for revenge. That's
right. And John, it's even more complicated. I hate we keep talking about this, but it's quite interesting. So even recently, that video came up where Louis C.K. used the word with a hard R at the end, I think, while Chris Rock was sitting there, and Chris Rock laughed and said, "Yes, I don't care if he says that." Remember that? So there's another phenomenon here where a person has to say, "Wait a second, why do I have to take this guy's opinion? Like, why can't I take this other credible black guy, Chris Rock's opinion, You know, like.
But you know what? But again.
So that will lead to confusion in people. You know.
There's no confusion. Let me say this. I bet you this much. I bet you Louis C.K. ass is smart enough not to say that out in the street.
Of course.
He said it because he was sitting there to say. He wouldn't say that in the bodega with some black people in there.
Of course not. He shouldn't. But that was never an okay use. But he would say it as.
So no one would be confused.
But now he can't
be confused about
John,
what he's doing.
Now he can't use his old bits that used it, and that's fine. I mean, I don't care. But I'm saying, you know, but in a conversation,
there's no confusion there. He's doing it. He's doing it where he's sitting next to Chris Rock, who's giggling in a safe space. Louis C.K. ass wouldn't try that out in the street.
It was on TV.
He wouldn't try that out in the street.
Of course not on the street. He
knows the difference. He knows what he's doing is fucked up.
The rule change has not been that you can now not say it on the street. You've never been able to say it out on the street. It used to be that you could discuss it. You could use it when you were discussing.
He wasn't discussing it.
He said it for shock value, didn't he? But it was a long time ago, and I'm sure if he did the same TV show now, he probably wouldn't say it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, things have changed. That's the thing. We change, don't we? Yeah.
He knew what he was doing.
Yeah. So no, what's happening with the opening then? Is it it's opening on Friday, 33% capacity or something like that?
Am I going to get in trouble for having this devil's advocate conversation now?
No.
You've not said anything wrong.
No, that's ancient history.
I would like to say
to talk about the reopening, and I'm sure listeners want to know about the reopening. So enough about what we were talking about. Let's talk about the reopening.
We're reopening on Friday. We're doing we have 4 stages, doing 3 shows in each stage. We have to be finished by 11, so the shows.
Oh, really?
Shows have to be a
Why?
little shorter.
Why do you have to finish by 11?
That's the time that the governor has to meet his girlfriends or something. I don't know. So I couldn't come up with anything. That's the curfew. Apparently after 11, the COVID viruses just get a little antsy and
your numbers.
Much
your
higher
number of
risk
cases
after
is going
11.
up. Your cases are going up over there. Are you worried about it?
COVID. 11 o'clock. It's time to do some damage.
That's what time COVID starts hunting.
Maybe because people get drunk.
I am happy to say I am hosting the 5 o'clock. So I hope to see. I'm sure it's already sold out, but
it's sold out.
Try to come down there anyway. I am honored to be hosting that day.
We're honored to have you, John.
I believe that.
Oh, Dan, we're not. With the cases are going up, but I don't think they're going up all that significantly. They're certainly not going up in high risk groups. So I don't think we're going to see any spike in deaths. I don't think. And then also people are getting vaccinated quite quickly. So I don't think that's that big a story actually. At least
I get my second shot on the 6th.
I have been trying to get this sentence out for a fucking hour. Number 1, the comment about my only responsibility is to share screens is bullshit.
Totally, Periel, totally.
Thank you, John. Number 1. Number 2, I couldn't have, in my wildest dreams, put together a better show right before the opening of the Cellar. I've been trying to get Jon Laster on this show for, I swear to God, a year.
I'm sorry. I am so sorry.
No, it's perfect. It's amazing. And the third thing is that I owe Andrew an apology, and he owes me an apology too, because you're really the reason why I know Noam so well.
Oh yeah, from the piece that you did for Tablet, yeah.
I interviewed Noam when I used to write a column for Tablet magazine, and I would generally interview people for like an hour and never see them again. Yeah. But it just so happened that your piece in the New Yorker was coming out in the same time, and we don't have to rehash that whole thing, but there was a little bit of miscommunication, so I'd like to apologize to you for that.
No.
But then
you didn't do anything wrong, don't worry.
Noah made me come back and meet him like 3 more times, and I got sucked into like these 4-hour-long meetings with him. So it's your fault.
He never wanted to have 4-hour-long meetings with me. That's strange.
I don't know that he really wants to have 4-hour-long meetings with me either.
Nobody can get out of a meeting with you in less than 4 hours. Andrew's succinct. All right. I guess
it was nice to meet you, Periel. Anyway,
I hope that this conversation doesn't blow up. I think these.
I say that every week, so I would advise you
because
I think this every single week to think beforehand whether you wish to say these things.
Yeah, I just think these are interesting things to talk about. I'm not defiant about the rules as they stand.
Cancel culture is real. I believe it exists, and I believe it's bad. But I don't believe it's so horrific that anything you say, that anything you have said, will result in your cancellation.
Yeah. Are we supposed to agree?
You know what? As black men, we have a pretty good cancel radar. Mine didn't go off. As black men, when we hear somebody about to get canceled, you tell me do this. As long as I'm in frame, everybody's safe.
All right.
I have to do my show here.
Go, Dan. Nobody's keeping you. Go.
Well, I would prefer not to go before the show's over, but
we have a few things we want to say when you leave. Go ahead.
Okay, bye-bye.
That yid. All right. Anyway. All right. Anything else?
Well, tell us where we can find you guys, Jon. You have a new app coming out.
I do.
Jon Black. What is it?
Oh, I want that sweatshirt.
Yeah, it's an app to support black businesses. It will be out at the end of May. Yeah, my legal team is all over it right now. Should be starting to be coded next week, but it's the response to it has been off the charts.
It's insane.
Are you still working with any of the people that I know you were working with, or that didn't work out?
You know what? I don't. It's not final yet because there's going to be more and more money to be raised. But I think that I got a lot better offers, and I was shocked because everyone told me that it was going to take me a year and a half to raise the money. The first 4 meetings I had, the first 4 people were like, before I finished the meeting, were like, "I'm in."
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So all that money you raised, my wife wants a free T-shirt, a sweatshirt.
I want a sweatshirt.
Oh, yo, absolutely. What color?
I like the one you're wearing, the black and white one.
Okay, because I'm about to put in the order. So, what size?
Large.
Got it. They're pretty big. Just warning you.
Juanita, you don't need a large.
I don't think so either.
I like it roomy.
Okay.
Okay. All right. What else? So Andrew Hankinson's book. We didn't tell us where the title came from. Applaud, don't applaud, either laugh or don't. Where the title?
That's something Colin Quinn used to say. I think Jay Oakerson thought that I got that from him, but it wasn't. It was something that Colin Quinn used to say at the beginning of Tough Crowd. It's in the book. I've got lots of interviews in there with Colin Quinn, and he talks about a lot of this stuff and where the kind of some of the ethos for his TV show came from. Yeah. Brilliant
comedy mind.
Yeah, a big fan of Colin. Yeah.
He says yid.
Don't honestly. I'm staying away from that.
That's like you're like outing people now, Noam.
I'm kidding because yid, yid is such to American ear, yid is so lightweight. Like yid is not that
What is it?
Money doesn't know what it means. Yid is like it's short for. It's like a Jewish derogatory term, like Yiddish.
Short for Yiddish. It's supposed to be like a derogatory term.
Like Heb or Yid.
But used within the Jewish community? I've never heard that before.
Okay.
We usually say Jap or like.
Oh. Yeah, this is my wife. She's of color, so she can say whatever she wants.
Oh, whatever.
She said to my father, she says, Manny, I went to buy this jacket. Yeah, how much? Well, I jewed him down. And my father says, what? My father, yeah, I jewed him down, Manny. And my father says, jewed him down. Like she had no idea from where she grew up in Brooklyn that jewed him down was even a derogatory term about Jews.
No, because that's what we say all the time.
Yeah,
we still say that.
She thought That's
No.
what you said.
No.
Yeah.
I can't say that.
No, like, we didn't know, like, when the term gypped, I got gypped.
Yeah.
I never knew until very recently that comes from gypsy.
Oh, wow.
The gypsy is supposed to cheat you.
Yeah,
Gypped. I got gypped. So it's totally possible. Jewed him down. Like, like you just don't place it, right?
You don't make the association.
Well, Jude him down is a little bit more direct than Jip.
Yeah, but you see, Perry,
But I didn't even think I was saying something bad.
this comes back to the same way. What you don't understand is how far from your perception of the world another person's can be through a totally drastically different life experience. This is they teach us in high school about ethnocentrism and cultural clash, and when American businessmen went to see Japanese businessmen, they would insult each other. But this goes on even within communities in the same country. Like, you say, how could she not know that Jew them down was? But they didn't. You just have to accept it as a fact. She didn't know. She'd known, she wouldn't have said it, right? So she certainly wouldn't have said it to my father. So you just got to take it on his face. Now
But we still say that.
All right, sweetheart, I'm trying to save you here.
Saying it doesn't mean anything against Jews. I don't know.
It does. You can't say Jew.
Why can't I say that?
Because your children are Jewish.
So what?
Oh, God, John, help me.
Well.
All right, anyway.
So the first show on Friday.
We say a
5
lot of
o'clock.
inappropriate things in my family.
No, now they say
Not with ill intent.
intent doesn't matter anymore. Now they say chew him down. I chewed him down, But that's
That sounds so stupid. The other way's way better.
all right. Anyway, you can't say chew him down. All right. Anything else you learn? What did we learn today? You can't say chew him down. All right. Anything else? That's it, right?
That's it.
The Cellar's opening up on Friday.
5
Friday,
o'clock.
April 2nd.
We are
Where
back.
can people go to make reservations?
ComedyCellar.com.
Great.
I know that people are shocked. Wait, let them go get a pencil. ComedyCellar.com. All right. All right, are we done?
Hey Andy, I can't wait to see the book. I didn't even know that I was in there.
I sent you an email. I sent you an email, so I don't know if I have a check of your emails and I'll get it to you. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
All right. It's nice to see you, John and Andrew. When are you coming to the States, Andrew?
Good to see
I
you.
don't know, not for a long time. We can't leave the country at the moment. We're not allowed, but yeah,
Oh, wow.
at some point. Yeah.
All right.
John, are we gonna see you Friday?
Yeah,
Yes. I can't wait to see you.
Yeah, me too.
You're coming on Friday?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Bye. Good night, everybody.
Nice to see you all. Bye-bye.